Shen Yanma threw her a quick look at Gu Shijio and asked, "How does the snake look like?" "The snake moves very fast, as swift as lightning. It is not safe for you to be here, Emma. You should leave." Gu Shijio talked very fast as she was desperate to send Shen Yanma out of the tunnel. Her spiritual level was the standard of a mighty immortal. Also, she often encountered many different kinds of poison all year round, so the poisons could hardly harm her anymore. She was not afraid of the snake. If bitten, she could always take pills to suppress the poison. However, it was not the same for Shen Yanma. He was merely a golden immortal. Once bitten, he would still be poisoned. Shen Yanma glanced at her coldly and demanded, "Call me Fui." Gu Shijio was speechless. "All right then. Fui, you should leave. Your little body will not be able to handle the bite." Gu Shijio persuaded him further. "Little body?" Frustrated, Shen Yanma could not help but grind his teeth. She would see him as a child, now that she knew about his identity. He refused to interact any further with her and took out a pale white pearl. He flicked the pearl to activate its luminance. Soon, the entire tunnel lit up. Gu Shijio was surprised to see the brightness, so she quickly took the bead in her hand. "The brightness will scare the snakes away. Don't you want to save your fellow junior apprentices anymore?" Shen Yanma whizzed the pearl out in the air before she managed to catch it. Hence, Gu Shijio failed to catch the bead. Instead, her hand fell right into his palm. He took her hand firmly and reassured, "Quiet. Don't move." His hand was supple and warm. Her heart started to throb a little when he grabbed her hand. The palpitation only lasted for a moment, however. When she remembered that he was only a 6-year-old child, the admiration was immediately replaced with a sense of maternal instinct. She took her hand back. Worried that it might hurt his feelings, she had to comfort him by patting gently on the back of his hand while she said, "Don't be silly. The snakes are afraid of the light. Please take the pearl back." While she was talking, she also started waving her sleeves in pursuit of the pearl. Shen Yanma took her sleeves back and reassured her again. "Don't worry. That is a snake pearl that can draw the attention of any snakes." Snake pearl? Did such a treasure really exist? Gu Shijio had only heard about it. Today, she could finally see it with her own eyes. She could not help but stare at it. The pearl did not glow with intense brightness. Instead, the luminance that it gave off was rather cold and soft. Under its radiance, every inch about the place could be clearly observed to the minutest detail. Gu Shijio held her breath when she heard something moving. It was the sound of an animal crawling. The poisonous creatures that lingered around in the darkest place must not be taken lightly. Gu Shijio was worried that Shen Yanma might be bitten by one of the snakes, so she quickly pulled him behind her. "Don't go anywhere. Take notice of what's on your feet." Shen Yanma looked at her attentively. She was a petite girl of only about 1.6 meters in height. He lowered his head and was immediately overwhelmed by her refreshing scent. He let out a chuckle. Then, with one hand on her shoulder, he agreed delightfully. "You have to take care of me." Gu Shijio could sense his warm breaths from behind. Overwhelmed by his scent, her heart started to throb a little. She could tell that Shen Yanmo's attitude towards her was a bit odd, but she dismissed the thought immediately due to the urgency of the situation. In fact, whenever she was reminded that he was only a little child, she would stop overthinking the matter. She could feel that his palm was getting a little too warm. Gu Shijio was alert of the possible threats, like the instincts of a woman intimidated by a powerful man. She was about to take a step forward to get away from his grasp, but that was when he pulled her close by the waist. "Quiet. The snakes are here." Gu Shijio was surprised. It was true that the snakes were here, but why must he pull her close at the waist? Why did the child have to be so touchy? Gu Shijio wanted to hit his arm to let her go, but before she could even touch him, he suddenly pulled his arm back. She almost hit herself at the stomach. Shen Yanma did not only let her go, but he also took a few steps backward and hid himself behind her protective figure, like a child seeking for protection. "Chongqing, you have to look after me. I am afraid of snakes." Gu Shijio did not feel quite right. The child sounded like he was trying to flirt. "If you are afraid of snakes, you should get up there and wait patiently, Gu Shijio responded scornfully while eyeing the pearl. No, Chongqing, we shall do this together. You are considered as my junior apprentice, so I cannot possibly leave you behind, Shen Yanma answered with a firm determination, as if fearless in the face of death. If things go right, I can be your senior apprentice. Never mind, we should talk about this a year from now. It is not the time to talk about these insignificant things. I see that many snakes have approached. Which of them is the desired one? Gu Shijio was speechless. The child was indeed good at playing tricks. He was the one who had brought up the topic of senior and junior apprentices. Now he acted as though Gu Shijio was pressuring him merely on the insignificant titles. Determined, she decided not to lower herself to the same level as the child. She turned and fixed her eyes on the pearl instead. A terrifying scene unfolded before her eyes. There was indeed an abundance of snakes. There were snakes of different sizes and colors. Some were red, black, and even purple. The snakes rustled tirelessly on the ground, emerging from many hidden corners of the tunnel. Like flying moths darting into the fire, they slowly moved towards the pearl. In a swarm, the colorful snakes moved in a compact mass. Under the radiance of the pearl, their eyes started to reflect in pale green. Gu Shijio could see many small, green eyes shimmering. She was irritated by the repetitive patterns of the snake. The sight of the countless snakes immediately sent a shiver down her spine. These rarely seen snakes were extremely poisonous. The very poison that was spurted from the snake was enough to kill a celestial being. The air was now also filled with the fishy smell of the snakes. Gu Shijio tried to suppress the irritation and focused on the snakes to differentiate them. Which one? Shen Yanma lowered his head and whispered into her ear. Gu Shijio was mildly agitated by his warm breath, so she shifted her head a little. I have not found it. Why do I get a feeling that you are interested in all these snakes? Gu Shijio did not answer. Truth be told, she was indeed interested in all of them. She was an expert in the use of poisons. Her habit was to study all kinds of poison, so she would definitely be interested in the poisonous snakes. These snakes were the treasured rarities that she would love to collect. However, the snakes were too venomous. She dared not rush into the circle of snakes foolishly and catch them all at once. Perhaps she should start with the ones at the back. If you call me as your senior apprentice, I will catch these snakes for you, Shen Yanma offered his help. He was standing very close to her. Gu Shijio answered scornfully, I thought you were afraid of snakes. If you can call me as your senior apprentice, I can forget about my fear for a second. The child had a smooth tongue. Gu Shijio did not take him seriously. She continued to eye on the snakes while thinking of a way to catch them. Shen Yanma suddenly lunged forward and moved very quickly towards the snakes. Gu Shijio was shocked by his sudden move. Quickly, she pulled his clothes and dragged him back forcefully. Are you looking for death? All these snakes are extremely venomous. Once bitten by any of them, you will die almost instantly. It was a child's behavior to act impulsively. The young were usually fearless. Shen Yanma looked at her fixedly. Are you worried that I might die? Gu Shijio thought that the question was rather odd. She was certainly worried. If he died, her mission would be considered as a failure. Apart from the mission, she really liked the child, so she would not have the heart to watch him die in vain. She could not tell him the truth, so she sighed in a helpless tone. You are the only precious child to your parents. If anything happens to you, your parents will hunt me down. Shen Yanma was disappointed. He had not expected that her kind gestures were all for the sake of his parents. Therefore, he hugged his arms and stood his ground. All right, you should do it yourself. Gu Shijio had always wanted to catch the snakes herself, but at the same time, she could not leave Shen Yanma alone in the dark. She was worried that he might be bitten by one of the snakes that escaped her eyes. She thought about it for a moment. Then she took out a bottle and circled him with the medicine. Stay within the circle. Don't get out of here. Did she think that he was a well-known Tang priest who needed protection at all times? Why would she circle him in a protective ring? Also, the circle was imperfect. Gu Shijio took a leap and landed at the circle of snakes. The first snake that she was about to catch was the most colorful one. The snake was the rarest and the most venomous kind out of all. If she was not mistaken, it was the king of snakes. Like lightning, Gu Shijio sped. She tried to catch it from the air by clinging onto its vital point. To her surprise, the snake reacted very quickly. Within a split second, the snake retreated and hid amongst the other snakes. The snake pearl started to fall, and all the other snakes were alarmed. Defensively, many of them turned to look at Gu Shijio. Gu Shijio failed to catch the snake, but she needed to step onto a surface in order for her to bounce back to her original position. Unfortunately, there were countless of snakes under her. No matter where she chose to land, she would definitely be bitten. Desperately, she was determined to step onto the snakes. However, all of a sudden she could feel a force at her waist. Soon, her entire body was being lifted. Safely, she landed safely in the hands of a man. Shen Yanma whispered, "For the sake of your life, I would like to hear you call me as your senior apprentice." "In your dreams." Gu Shijio stomped on his foot. He finally let go of her waist and placed her securely on the ground. She turned and looked at Shen Yanma. There he stood, well-behaved and unmoving in the circle. He did not even move a bit. Although the child was fond of taking advantage of her, she could not help but agree that his help came when she needed it the most. "You have indeed saved me, but I am not afraid of the bites, so it doesn't count as saving my life. Therefore, little child, it does not count as a life-saving gesture. It is not easy to make me address you as my senior apprentice." "Little child." Shen Yanma had been saying the term repeatedly. Then he continued half-jokingly, "You sound like you have aged a lot. How old are you exactly?" Gu Shijio hesitated. She knew that he would not listen to her if she continued to show him her teenage side. She did not look superior enough. Moreover, her current appearance had greatly restricted her power, so she seriously considered returning to her old self. If Gu Shijio chose to return to her original size now, her dress would be shattered. It would not be so decent to be completely nude in front of a child. Hence, Gu Shijio did not answer. Quietly, Shen Yanma studied her expression and questioned, "Are you the Maiden of Heavenly Mountains from the Celestial Devil continent?" The Maiden of Heavenly Mountains was a character of the novel, The Demigods and Semi-Devils. She aged more than 100 years but maintained the appearance of a child. She would never grow or age another day. The child knew many things. He was indeed a rare talent. After all, he was the son of a man who came from the future. She gave him a tight smile but did not deny his suspicion. "I have seen you without your pants." Shen Yanma was utterly surprised. She managed to trigger him. If the same thing came from somebody else, Shen Yanma would only reply with a snide comment. This time, however, he chose to react differently to the remark that came from the little girl. When I was without my pants. What did you see?" The child was perverted. A child of 6 years old should not have such thick skin to question something so perverted. He should be more naive and adorable. What else could she see when he was without his pants? She must have seen his private part. She did not mean to make the topic sound so perverted. She only wanted to show him how old she actually was. He gave her a fixed glare while waiting for her answer. Gu Shijio refused to continue to the topic any further. She did not want him to make it sound even worse than it already was. She threw him a glance and answered briefly, "A child should not be so perverted." Then she took a leap and was ready to rush into the snakes again. However, Shen Yanma immediately halted her attempt when he grabbed her wrist. "Wait!" His quick reflex surprised Gu Shijio. "What are we waiting for?" Shen Yanma put a finger on his lips and demanded, "The method you are using to catch these snakes is too reckless. I will show you." Suddenly, he took out a lute and started playing melodiously. The tune was rather odd. Although the piece of music was not entirely well tuned, it was at least pleasant. Initially, the snakes were circling the snake pearl in a mass, but when the music started playing, these snakes suddenly picked up their bodies and swayed along with the melody as if they were dancing. Was it a melody that could control the snakes? Gu Shijio looked at Shen Yanma with disbelief. She had never expected him to know about the trick. However, if he was going to use the lute to manipulate the snakes, Why did he even bother to unleash the snake pearl at the very beginning? It was an unnecessary move. She fixed her eyes on Shenyanma. He took a few seemingly random modes of movement as if he was setting up a spell. The tunnel was sealed without any ventilation, but at this very moment, his robes were swaying in gusts of strong wind. However, he stood firmly and played his lute freely. She felt that he looked somewhat familiar. Tears started to roll in her eyes like his presence had just reminded her of something that she had been painstakingly looking for but failed to find. Fui, she could not help but whisper his name in her breath. They were standing close to each other, so he could definitely hear her. He did not stop playing the lute, but his eyes were on her attentively as he whispered, Recovering from her preoccupation of thoughts, Gu Shijio was shocked even by her own behavior. To her dismay, she had definitely gone too far. He was only a child. Gu Shijio shook her head in disapproval. It was probably the premenstrual syndrome that had caused her confusion, which explained why she was emotionally affected when the child flirted with her. Shen Yanma was obviously treating her as someone who was of the same age as him, which was why he would not stop flirting. The absurdity could not go on anymore. The snakes danced violently to the sound of the lute. A few moments later, some of the snakes lay quietly on the ground, exhausted from the dance. Others were alarmed. They knew they should not follow the dance any longer, but they could not control their movement at all. About 15 minutes later, all the remaining snakes lay helplessly on the ground. Shen Yanma finally let the lute down. "You can begin your hunt now. Pick whichever that you want," he uttered. While he was talking, he also turned around to check the surroundings for Gu Shijio. However, what he saw shocked him to the core. He was frozen momentarily, then took a step back in retreat. The beautiful and adorable young girl was replaced by the woman who had been giving him nightmares. There she stood in completely black outfits, black robes, black hair, and a black, disturbing mask of a vicious ghost, highly resembling the Grim Reaper who had just emerged from hell. He only managed to say something in a hoarse whisper. Gu Shijio had returned to her usual appearance. While Shen Yanma was busy playing the lute, she quickly made her change of wardrobe in a dark corner. Within seconds, she changed into her usual look very quickly without alarming Shen Yanma. The purpose of the change was to let the child recognize her true identity. She knew that the child used to be intimidated by her image. By throwing the gloom at him again, she believed that he would no longer be able to flirt with her. To her delight, she gave him a tight smile. "What is it? Little Nyanma, can you recognize me?" With a note of mockery in her voice, she sounded, once again, like the mysterious woman. "Now I see. It has always been you," he answered coldly with a profound look in his eyes. "It is I." Gu Shijio continued, "Now you know that I have always been truthful to you." Shen Yanma pinched his lips into a thin line and made no further comment. Gu Shijio ignored him and walked towards the snake. "I did not know that you can manipulate the snakes." Impressive. The snakes were completely worn out, so they did not struggle when she made her hunt. She caught them up at their vital points and placed them in a bag. A few moments later, she had collected almost half of the snakes. The snake pearl was still rolling on the ground, glittering with immense radiance. Gu Shijio picked it up and rolled it playfully in her hand. "Take it," she demanded and threw the pearl at him. The snake pearl was indeed precious. Gu Shijio was drawn to its rarity, but she did not want to covet the child's possession. Shen Yanma was caught in his contemplation when Gu Shijio handed him the pearl, so he received it without a second thought. Suddenly, he had a premonition of a disaster. "No!" He quickly threw the pearl back to the circle of snakes. However, he was not quick enough. Gu Shijio was trying to catch a fiery red snake that was lying quietly on the ground, but all of a sudden it rose and bit Gu Zijia's hand. Gu Shijio did not see it coming, so her middle finger was unfortunately bitten. She was shocked. Immediately, she hit the snake right at its head. The snake was dead instantaneously. Dark green blood started oozing from the wound on her middle finger, giving her severe pain. Luckily, Shen Yanma returned the pearl in time. Under the influence of the pearl, the remaining snakes were down before they were chaotically revived. The loot did not only cause the collapse of the snakes in an undignified heap. Rather, it was a joint effect of the loot and the snake pearl. When Gu Shijio handed the pearl back to Shinyenma, she had also accidentally disarmed the spell that bounded the snakes. As a result, she had to pay the price for her thoughtless mistake. Gu Zijia's extraordinary physical condition enabled her to survive the bite, as long as she was able to consume the cure in time. The moment when she was bitten, she immediately reached into her storage bag to look for the cure. What she did not expect was the strength of the poison. It was unusually venomous, making her suffer unbearable pain. The pain greatly affected her nervous system. Immediately, the pain was spread from her finger to her entire body. Her active fingers started to tremble with a feeling of numbness. Her sense of touch was greatly reduced. For a while, she could not find the bottle of medicine that she carried in her storage space. Anxiety took over. The more anxious she was, the quicker the poison spread. The pain was starting to get beyond her level of endurance. Slowly, she was about to suffer from blackouts. Dazzled, she could feel an arm around her when she collapsed. Swiftly, he took off her mask. Gu Shijio was surprised, but she was unable to react. A pill was then stuffed into her mouth. "Swallow it," he demanded. The pill tasted very bitter and fishy. Gu Shijio was determined to swallow it, but she could not push it down her throat. She tried hard, but the pill still remained on her tongue. "I thought you were not concerned about the poison from the snakes." She could hear Shinyenma blabbering in a hoarse voice. Soon, she could feel something warm and supple against her soft lips. Also, her tightly clenched teeth were pushed open. His tongue then entered her mouth to help her push the pill down her throat. She could feel his cold skin on her neck. He gently caressed her neck to help her swallow the pill. Although she had taken the pill, the effect would not be immediate. Gu Shijio was in such great pain that she could barely stand. He lay her down on the floor with her head on his lap. Gu Shijio was still consciousness at the time. She knew that someone was holding her finger and forcing the toxic blood out from her body. She was impressed by his great tact in dealing with a snake-bitten wound. She knew that it was Shinyenma who was taking care of her at the moment. The child did not maltreat an injured person. Instead, he chose to save her. Presumably, he did not bear a grudge or revolt against her. Gu Shijio was thankful for his help. Suddenly, she could tell that he was putting her wounded finger in his mouth. She was very surprised. Was he going to suck the toxic blood out of the wound? The venom was unusually potent. If he were not careful, he could infect himself as well. Intuitively, she tried to pull her finger out. "No way," she weakly said. Her strength was certainly incomparable to his at the moment. Before she could get her finger out of his mouth, he was already grabbing her wrist. "Be still. Don't move," Shinyenma softly demanded. Gu Shijio was unable to struggle. Meanwhile, she also felt that he sounded as though he was comforting a child. Shinyenma continued to suck the toxic blood from the wound. She could feel her finger in his mouth. Initially, her aching finger was numb, dulling her sense of touch. As the toxic blood continued to exit her body, she could feel her fingers slowly being more responsive. When he sucked at her finger, the sensation was beyond her expression. She felt a little weak, as the delightful sensation on her fingers slowly took over her mind. She tried to suppress the odd feelings while the pill she consumed earlier started to take effect. The pain was greatly reduced, and so was the numbness. Soon, her agility returned. Quickly, she reached into her storage bag to look for the medicine. Her medicine was made specifically to counter the venom, so it would be more effective. "Don't move." He caught her at the wrist again. "I want to take the medicine." "I will do it for you." He reached out into her bag and asked, "Which one?" The storage bag was located on the upper part of her chest. It was not a sensitive part of her body, but he still had to expose that particular part of her clothes to reach into the bag. Her breasts were partly exposed, too. Gu Shijio had an attractive figure. Her body was particularly curvy, with breasts that swelled out perfectly. Even with her breasts only partly exposed, the view alone was arousing. Shinyenma wanted to take the medicine for her, so his hand would unavoidably touch the upper part of her chest. Her skin was soft and supple. He could feel the warmth radiating off it. His hand was frozen momentarily when he made contact with her skin, but he did not pull away. Instead, he reached out into her storage bag. Which bottle? There were too many bottles in the space. Although Shinyan-ma was knowledgeable in medicine, he could not differentiate which was which in a short time. The red and blue jade bottles. He finally found the bottle. Immediately, he fixed her clothes for her. The medicine was for oral administration and external use. After the application, Gu Shijio was more relieved. She suffered less pain and no longer felt like she was going to black out. She managed to sit, though with difficulty, and mediate. The venom of the snake would specifically attack her nervous system while the spread of the poison in her body was too quick. Although Shinyan-ma had sucked and extracted most of the poison out of her body, some still lingered in her blood. A few moments later, a drop of dark purple venom could be seen exiting her body through her fingertips. She opened her eyes, and the first thing she saw was her usual white and fair finger. The remaining poison was gone. Gu Shijio heaved a sigh of relief. Then she turned and fixed her eyes on Shinyan-ma. He was clearing the bodies of the remaining snakes. The way he handled the snakes was very violent, considering that all of them were dead. Gu Shijio was shocked. She wanted to collect the snakes for medical use. Most of the time, the alchemy would require the venom of the snakes. She could only extract their venoms when they were alive. Hence, their dead bodies would no longer be useful. It was such a waste. In a blink of an eye, she immediately noticed that there was still a snake wriggling slowly not too far away from Shinyan-ma. It was still alive. Before Shinyan-ma could do anything to it, Gu Shijio took a quick leap forward. Keep the snake. I need it alive. She had just recovered from the injury, so she was definitely slower paced than Shinyan-ma. She failed to reach the snake before the kid. With the snake in his hand, Shinyan-ma then retreated to keep a distance away from her. At first, the snake looked somewhat distorted under his tight grip. With a strong flick, the snake immediately softened into a line. Apparently, the snake was dead. I told you that I needed it alive, Gu Shijio complained. Shinyan-ma was unimpressed. Why should I listen to you? Gu Shijio did not say anything more. She should not mind it, for he had saved her life. She did not want to argue with him over an irrelevant matter. She swept her eyes across the snakes that were unfortunately killed by Shinyan-ma. Their bodies were tidily arranged into a circle according to their patterns and types. Needless to say, it was Shinyan-ma who had done it. The child must have obsessive-compulsive disorder about tidiness. None of the snakes was the one that she was looking for. They had to keep looking. Gu Shijio disregarded the bodies of the snakes and decided to move on. We have to keep looking. The cherry blossom snake is not here. By the way, I have to tell you this in advance. We have to keep the snake alive. It will be useless once dead. We will not be able to save the lives of your junior apprentices. Shinyan-ma had a perplexed look on his face. He thought that the snake bodies would antagonize her, but she did not seem to take the matter very personally. Obviously, he was only a child to her, so she did not want to lower herself to the level of a child. He clenched his fists at the thought. Nonetheless, he continued to follow her steps. I have saved your life, Shinyan-ma finally commented. Yes, I now owe you a favor. Do you still want me to call you as my senior apprentice? Gu Shijio thought about the condition that he had previously offered. It is unnecessary, Shinyan-ma answered coldly. Suddenly, he raised her arm to get her attention on his wrist. A bracelet slowly revealed itself. Take this bracelet off me, Shinyan-ma demanded. He needed her to get it done. Gu Shijio did not know how to respond. Can't you take the bracelet off yourself? Hesitantly, Gu Shijio asked. Have you no knowledge about your previous possession? Shinyan-ma questioned. Gu Shijio coughed. This was not always mine. I was acting under orders to find its true master. Were you following me under orders? Whose orders? I have nothing to tell. She could not simply tell him about the heavenly laws. Otherwise, the act would be considered as a breach. Shen Yanma looked at her with apathy. How did you know I was its true master? Gu Shijio frowned, struggling to find an explanation. Did her intuition count as a legit answer? She only found him based on her intuition. However, the explanation sounded rather abstract. He would not easily believe it. The method is of no importance. The important thing is that you are truly its master. Regarding the box, only its true master can open the box. Even I could not open the box myself, so I certainly did not know what was in there. Shen Yanma fixed his eyes on her expression. He had a profound look in his eyes. He hugged his arms and continued, "Are you saying that even you cannot take the bracelet off?" Gu Shijio hesitated before offering, "Do you want me to try?" "Great." Shen Yanma reached his hand out for her to try. Gu Shijio finally had a clearer view of the bracelet. Its texture seemed to be richer than before. Indistinctly, its appearance was translucent with 7 colored rays, looming up through its misty and rosy cloud patterns. It was far more beautiful than any other bracelets that Gu Shijio had ever seen. The bracelet hung perfectly on his wrist. It suited him just right, like it was meant to be his. "The bracelet looks beautiful. Why do you want to take it off?" "It is here against my will. I will not take it no matter how beautiful it looks." Shen Yanma obviously disapproved of the bracelet. He liked the joy of freedom but was unfortunately hooked with the bracelet. It shimmered gloriously, which was something that he did not prefer. Moreover, the bracelet was from the person who had been giving him nightmares, which made him dislike the bracelet even more. Throughout the years, he had tried many ways to get the bracelet off but failed. Now that he had finally met the person who was responsible for the bracelet, he would not let the opportunity slip. When he was forced to wear the bracelet, he had even thought that it was the ugly and disturbing woman's trick to manipulate him. When he was older, he changed his mind and thought that the woman might fancy him. He had expected her to show up once in a while to remind him of her presence. To his surprise, the woman disappeared entirely for many years. He later found out that the woman had a rather low profile in the continent. Her appearance was merely a flash no matter where she went. Also, she was not very sociable. He asked many people about her, but not many had the answers. Regarding the case of the missing children, he had once thought that she was the chief conspirator behind the case. He interrupted the investigation to winkle her out. Surprisingly, she showed up in another way. He did not know what to feel the moment she revealed her true self, so he stood by staring blankly, lost in thoughts. Just when he was all caught up in his thoughts, the snake seized the window and bit her. When he saw that she was poisoned, he quickly supported her with hand. His only thought at the moment was to keep her alive. He had finally found her after so long, so he could not simply watch her die. He also discovered that she was the big sister who had once sent him home many years ago. The moment he took off her mask was when he found out about the shocking truth. He was astonished. Gu Shijio had been full of surprises since the beginning. He could hardly handle it anymore. He ground his teeth with rage. If her life were not at stake, he would have left her. This woman had made her appearance in so many different forms. What did she want, exactly? She appeared and disappeared so mysteriously every time. When he intended to search for her, she never showed up. When he gave up on her, she suddenly reappeared. He could not figure out how he truly felt about her. There was a mixture of joy and rage, also some elements of hatred and surprise. He was overwhelmed with a strong wave of emotions. He could not pinpoint exactly how she made him feel. He only knew that he must keep her alive. Saving her life was the priority. He was obsessed with hygiene, so he hated it when others came too close to him. However, he did not have the same attitude towards her. Sometimes, he would even wish to pull her close into his embrace to caress and protect her. He even kissed her when he was desperate to help her swallow the pill. He had set his heart to save her life, so he did not consider many other things. He would not rest until she was conscious and finally found the strength to sit up. He had even contributed his first kiss in order to save her life. That was a huge sacrifice because he once hated this woman the most. His mother had once told him that his first kiss must be reserved for the one he liked the most. Only then it would become a pleasant memory. His father and mother kept their first kisses for one another. As for his, he submitted it so casually. Was he being possessed? Was he not thinking straight? Shen Yanma was oppressed with the thought, so he had to vent his anger on the snakes. He knew that Gu Shijio wanted the snakes alive, so he killed them on purpose in order to go against her wish. Surely, Gu Shijio was not sure of all the thoughts that were going on in his head. Meanwhile, she was focusing entirely on the bracelet. She roughly remembered that the bracelet used to be in the shape of a small dragon. The bracelet was formed when its head was assembled to the tail. Probably, there would be an opening mechanism somewhere. She was looking for the lock, hoping that she could get the bracelet off his wrist. Gu Shijio did not want to owe anyone favors. Shen Yanma had saved her life, so she would do anything to fulfill his requests. After a long time, the bracelet was still very much intact, even though she had tried many different ways to open it. There was not even a single crack. She tried to pull the bracelet off, but it could not go past his wrist. It really was not meant to be taken off. Moreover, it had even grown bigger to suit the size of his hand as he became older. It fitted him just right. Gu Shijio kept trying, but nothing worked. Shen Nianmo's hand started to sweat. She resigned with a sigh. I am sorry, there really is no way. She looked up and froze momentarily. Their eyes met as soon as she raised her head. His eyes were staring fixedly at her face. Gu Shijio took a step back. Intuitively, she tried to touch her face and realized that her mask had been taken off. He was looking straight at her face right now. She knew that she had a beautiful face, but he did not seem amazed by her beauty. She was uncomfortable under his intense eyes, so she took another step back and asked, "Why are you looking at me like that? How many identities do you actually have? How many times have you showed up in front of me?" Shen Yanma continued to stare at her. Gu Shijio frowned in bewilderment. Only these two. What do you mean by how many identities? 2? As far as I am concerned, there are 3. Gu Shijio failed to recall. 3? Which was the third one? I remember the time when you were in your feminine form, with Long Sai by your side. You sent me home before as my big sister. Shen Yanma answered, half-jokingly. Gu Shijio paused for a while to think about it. It seemed the young man did recall. Why did you make your appearance in so many different forms? What do you want from me? Aren't you tired having to change from one identity to another? Shen Yanma took another quiet but intimidating step towards her. Gu Shijio smacked her head. Nyanma. Call me Fui. Gu Shijio raised her arms as if surrendering. All right, Fui, I believe we may have a misunderstanding here. I appeared a few times before because I suspected that you were the target of my mission, so I had to observe you before I made any conclusion. I know that I have scared you before, but have I actually harmed you? It was a mere coincidence when I sent you home at that time. I did not intend to show up in front of you that night. Moreover, I only took the form of a child this time in order to be caught. I needed to make the investigation myself. I did not know at all that I was going to see you here. What surprised me more was that you grew so much in just 5 years. It came as a shock when she found out that he was Shen Yanma. She suspected that he must have taken some kind of growth hormone to help him grow. Shen Yanma explained slowly, I am the son of a celestial being and a devil. Surely, I am different from ordinary people. I am no longer a child. Gu Shijio was certainly impressed. Your genetics are undoubtedly amazing. My father became a grown-up when he was only a year old. There really is nothing strange. It was indeed a privilege to be born as the next of kin of the union of a celestial and devil. Unlike Gu Shijio, who had to go through many hardships in order to get to where she was now. However, his progressive growth was not entirely because of his genetics. He was also the reincarnation of the Master of Heavenly Law. Gu Shijio recalled the appearance of the Master of Heavenly Law. Although she did not see his face very clearly, she could remember how he made her feel. His elegant grace and tremendous influence closely resembled Shen Nianmo's. Certainly, Shen Nianmo's influence was not as strong as the Master of Heavenly Law that she had met before. He was, after all, a child. Someday, she believed that she would become a really powerful man. He took 6 years to achieve the level of a golden immortal. With that progress, he would become a mighty immortal within a decade. Her mission was to help him achieve the level of a mighty immortal in exchange for Huang Tu's revival. She was excited at the thought of that, so she gave Shen Yanma an enthusiastic look. Yanma, oh no, Fui, would you like to increase your power tremendously? Perplexed, Shen Yanma responded with a look of confusion. What about that? On her palm, Gu Shijio showed him a purple, lustrous pill. I have collected an effective pill that will help you to increase your strength quickly. I can give this to you as a gift. You can try it and see your progress. Shen Yanma picked it up and observed it carefully. Did you make this? He could not help but ask. I did not expect that. This is a level 8 pill. There are not many alchemists who are as skilled as you even in this celestial demon continent. Gu Shijio was flattered. Of course. I am an expert in alchemy. There is rarely anyone who can achieve the same excellence as I do. Shen Yanma looked at the pill with a peculiar expression. The pill shone with brilliant luster, but he could not figure out the ingredients of the pill at all, even though he was an expert in medicine. He put the pill away in his storage bag, so he could study it properly when he got home. He had seen many pills that could advance one's spiritual power, except this one. In fact, the cultivation of one's spiritual power had to be done in an orderly way with a painstaking amount of effort. It was not advisable to depend on the pills alone. Otherwise, one's cultivation might easily go haywire. Also, most of the pills contained vicious elements that came with side effects. Shin Nianmo's father reserved a lot of miraculous medicines and elixirs for him, but all of them were to maintain his health and were not for the advancement of his spiritual power. Shen Jiuli once told him that the administration of pills would spoil the entire cultivation by destroying the very conditions upon which success depended. Yet, Gu Shijio had given him a pill. Was Gu Shijio very desperate for his advancement? I remember that you wanted to take me as your disciple? Shen Yanma asked very suddenly. Yes, but you refused to. Have you changed your mind? Gu Zijia's eyes danced with merriment. Definitely not. Shen Yanma shattered her hope directly. Gu Shijio studied his expression and continued, Why have you asked then? Now that you know who I really am, you should know that I am not any worse than any of your 10 masters. In fact, I am probably stronger. I am skilled in the use of poisons, spells, and array formation. Gu Shijio named a few of her special abilities. I know as much or even more than all the skills that your masters have to offer. If you accept me as your master, I will definitely help you to increase your spiritual power in no time and achieve greater successes. Shen Yanma interrupted, Do not even think about it. I will never agree to become your disciple. Gu Shijio did not know what to say. She could only settle as his senior apprentice then. If he was not willing to be her disciple, why did he even bother to ask? She thought there was hope. I have noticed that you are very much interested in my advancement. Is it your mission as well? Shen Yanma asked the right question. Gu Shijio did not answer his question. Shen Yanma continued to pressure her with his intense gaze. Is it really a mission? The child was indeed smart. How did he manage to conjecture that? Gu Shijio hesitated. We should not focus too much on the mission. You should know that I am doing this for your own good. Isn't it good if I can help you in your advancement? He was right. It was a mission. If it were not for the mission, she would not even bother to stay close to him at all. Shen Yanma stared at her blankly for a while. Abruptly, he rose and left. Gu Shijio was utterly surprised. Was he upset? She was confused. He was only a child of incalculable moods. Maybe he was starting to experience his teenage revolt in advance. Many speculations flashed by in her head, but she still could not figure out why. She decided to leave the subject behind and focus instead on the cherry blossom snake. There were 2 people whose lives depended on her. They continued to explore the tunnel for another half an hour. Meanwhile, Shen Yanmo used the snake pearl to attract the snake 2 more times but failed both times. Finally, on the last try, the snake appeared. The snake was covered entirely in pitch-black skin, which was about a foot long. It was as thin as the size of a chopstick. Despite its size, it was the leader of the snakes. It moved very swiftly and was hard to spot. Also, it was capable to spout out venom in the color of faint cherry pink. It was the most beautiful and yet the most venomous kind. Gu Shijio was experienced, so she managed to catch it in the end. The search was not in vain. They had time, so Gu Shijio decided to stay and explore the entire tunnel. Along their way, they managed to decipher many deadly tricks that were set in the tunnel. Finally, they arrived at the end. The end of the tunnel led them to an area of open water. The place was unusually cold. Many flower buds floated graciously on the surface. The place that surrounded the tree palace was mysterious. Gu Shijio felt as though she had just stepped into a utopia of flower blossoms. The banks of the lake were filled with blossoming trees, forming an array of cherry blossoms. The view was spectacular. She must have escaped from here, riding a crane. Shin Yenma took a walk around the area and found the traces left behind by the young palace master. Gu Shijio acknowledged Shin Yenmo's findings. The celestial cranes were the most popular rides in the celestial world. If the young palace master escaped with a crane, it would be difficult to find her. The young palace master had definitely prepared for an escape. Therefore, the search would not be easy. Mountains with steep, rocky cliffs surrounded the place. Even the slopes glittered with more cherry blossoms. The intense greenery contrasted a waterfall emerging from the depths of the mountains that went straight into a pool of water. The flower buds of crimson red danced gracefully in the gusts of wind, filling the air with delightful fragrances. Some of the buds fell onto the surface as the breeze continued to carry them away from their branches. They looked up and realized that the sky was covered with a layer of fog in crimson red. They could not see anything beyond the fog. The red mist was the legendary cherry blossom miasma. The vapor was extremely poisonous. Without a proper cure, any living being who passed by the area would be poisoned to death, which explained the serenity of the place without any traces of living creatures. "We should split and search the place," Gu Shijio suggested. She was hoping to find some clues. After all, the place was the secret garden of the young palace master. Shin Yenma agreed and proceeded. Ever since he found out about her true identity, he had been treating her rather coldly. They barely talked. Gu Shijio regretted that she revealed her true self so quickly, but at least he finally stopped flirting with her. However, he seemed to take prudent precautions against her. She knew it when he kept the pill away instead of swallowing it. He did not trust her. If things did not change, it would be difficult for her to train him in the future. Nonetheless, she should leave the matter now and attend to it later. She would improvise when the time came. It was neither the spring season of March nor April, but the cherry blossom was unusually spectacular, each blooming more brilliantly in the other's company. A walk in the garden, surrounded by these fantastic flowers, would be a very romantic walk. It would be such a happy time if a couple came and took a walk together, hand in hand. Gu Shijio recalled one of the hallucinations that occurred to her before. In the picture, she and Huang Tu spent some time in a garden of cherry blossoms. It must have been a very happy time. In the scene, they were walking very closely together. She hugged his arm and walked the path together. They must have been very deeply in love. Unfortunately, he had disappeared. She had also forgotten about their love story. When Shin Yenma finally returned to his position as the master of heavenly law, hopefully, he would find a way to revive Huang Tu. Swiftly, she walked the path in the garden while carefully observing her surroundings to find more traces. Soon, she found a trail. The garden was primitive. It was formed naturally. She noticed its primary ecosystem by looking at the thorns that covered the ground. The trail, however, was looking a little odd. It was certainly not built but formed due to frequent steps taken along the path. Did the young master come here very often? Gu Shijio observed the trail and found something strange. Human steps did not only cover the trail, but it also bore evidence of a wheelchair. She followed the trail and continued to explore. The route was remote and tortuous. She wriggled through and finally arrived at a cliff. From the top, the water formed a cascade down the mountain. The rushing water acted like curtains, covering almost the entire wall of the cliff. Gu Shijio focused on the cliff, but could hardly find anything odd. However, her intuition told her that something must be wrong about the place. She took a leap and landed on a rock at the bottom of the falls. She knocked on the wall and realized that it was not solid. It must be a cave. Gu Shijio knocked and tapped around the place and finally found a small switch. After pressing on it, a tunnel suddenly appeared. Gu Shijio looked inside through the cascading curtains of water. She could not see anything as the tunnel was dark inside. Who is it? A voice emerged from inside the tunnel that was accompanied by the sound of chains being dragged across the floor. Gu Zhijia's heart skipped a beat. This voice sounded somewhat familiar. She dashed inside the deep tunnel. After a few twists and turns, she finally encountered what seemed to be a person. She also saw some light. The source of the shimmer was the gleaming luminous pearls embedded along the walls. As the quality of the pearls was only normal, its dull shine could only cover a small area in the cave. The person was sitting on a wheelchair and clothed in a faint white shirt. His long hair draped all over his upper body. There was a small portion that swayed in front of his forehead, nearly fully obstructing his face, while the remaining portion fell behind his back. His wrists and ankles were bound with magic iron chains that were hung up high on the walls of the cave. The chains clanged against each other along with his movements. He seemed to have heard Gu Shijio entering. He rose his head slowly and spoke in a cold voice. "Who are you? Another agent of hers?" He paused as his eyes fixed on Gu Shijio. "Are you Shijio?" Gu Zijia's eyes widened as well in astonishment. "Yun Yanli." He was the Yun Yanli that had gone missing for several years. The once handsome prince had fallen into such disgrace, even causing the astute Gu Shijio to fail to recognize him. Gu Shijio heard all about his tragic afflictions in the past few years. His experience was dreary but straightforward. He had fallen into a coma on the battlefield and woke up in this cave to find a lady garmented in boys' clothing who called herself a young palace master. He had suffered a heavy injury and would have lost his life if it were not for the young palace master treating and healing him. He had thought of her as a savior at first, but she started to question him about some concerning things regarding heaven. He was naturally skeptical and did not answer. The lady started to lose her patience and imprisoned him in this place, subjecting him to physical and verbal torture every 3 to 5 days and occasionally even sending half-orcs to do the job. Soon after, the lady stopped interrogating him but told him that his family had met complete devastation. She claimed that his father and brothers have died at the hands of demons while all of his subordinates have either surrendered or perished. The new emperor was his former friend Yi Tianli. She said that he was the only remaining member of the Yun family and wanted him to write a letter to his former subordinates to wage war and restore his family's former glory. Yun Yanli did not believe a word of her narrative of his family's tragedy, dismissing all of it as lies. The young palace master became enraged and reviled him as scum and subhuman, thereby treating him as a human guinea pig for drugs. And just like that, he was locked up in here for several years. As he was subject to heavy testing for a significant amount of time, his legs eventually became crippled. The young palace master probably thought that there was still some utility in him and kept him alive, even bringing him out to bask in the sunlight on occasion. As Yun Yanli had been imprisoned for several years, he was naturally delighted when he saw Gu Shijio and struck up a long conversation with her. As Gu Shijio listened to him, she tried to find a way to unlock the magic iron chains. The lock was crafted intricately and could not be opened by most people, but fortunately for him, Gu Shijio was unlike most people. Therefore, by the time Yun Yanli had finished sharing his story, she had unlocked the chains. It was only when Gu Shijio released Yun Yanli from the chains that she understood his true suffering. The magic iron chains that fettered Yun Yanli's wrists and ankles had spikes protruding from inside that sunk right into his flesh and bone. She could hardly unfetter the chains without further damaging his bone, leaving behind a harrowing sight of blood. Yun Yanli was Gu Zijia's trusty and precious companion in this world. He had offered a lot of help to Gu Shijio in the past as well. Now that he has fallen into this state, she naturally felt sorrowful and used her best endeavors to heal his many injuries. Without even pausing to think, she took out her best medicine and applied it on his wounds. Shijio, is my family still well? What the young palace master said must be false, right? Yun Yanli finally asked the question he was concerned about the most. Gu Zijia's fingers halted for a second. How should she tell him everything about the former emperor immortal? She was not entirely clear about the matter, as well as she had only heard bits about it. But the collapse of the Yun family was indeed true. Pausing for a moment, she then told Yun Yanli gently, "Your father and elder brother have gone missing. No one knows where they are now. The new emperor is indeed Yi Tianli." Yun Yanli's complexion turned pale. They really have. It was really the work of that devil Shuama. Gu Shijio shook her head. Things didn't go as simple as what she had said. From what I know, your father had conspired with the substitute divine god against Suimo's mother and son, almost sundering the both of them apart. You should investigate into this yourself to know more about it once you get out of here. The news did not hit Yun Yanli well. He sat motionlessly in astonishment. Gu Shijio did not try consoling him. The grief of these matters was inconsolable. Since Yun Yanli was of royal blood, he should know all about the personality of his father. Once anything relates to power, morals and ethics become obsolete. His father got what was coming to him and deserved no sympathy. However, as Yun Yanli was the prince of the previous dynasty, it was natural for him to feel anguish. All she could do was hope that he would walk out of his pain soon. Your mother and sister are still alive. They have been arranged to settle down at a small palace and are living a good life. You can visit them after you get out of here. Yun Yanli sighed lightly. His pallid complexion had been restored with some color. I will. Although he did not believe in what the young palace master had said before, he still had some skepticism over the veracity of the matter. Therefore, Gu Shijio had only confirmed his fearful suspicions. Shijio, how have you been in the past few years? Quite well. Have you met the person you wanted to meet? I guess that is the case. Really? Yun Yanli's eyes brightened up. That's great. You've searched for him for long enough. It has been a few hundred years. I felt sad for you at that time when you went to the heavens to look for him. Which mighty immortal is he now? I have to know him. Shijio, is he your significant other? Gu Shijio froze. The image of Shin Yanma flashed before her mind, causing her brain to falter. She replied sternly, he is not a mighty immortal. Also, the reason I looked for him was strictly professional and for a mission. He is not my significant other. I see. Since you've found him, does that mean your mission is complete? Gu Shijio shook her head. Looking for him is only one part of the mission. I have not completed it yet. Yun Yanli was astounded. It's still not complete yet? What else do you need to do? Gu Shijio massaged her temples. Bring him up to shape. This task was as difficult as the previous one. That brat was quite hard to deal with. Yun Yanli stammered before regaining himself. Bring him up to shape? So that means he's still a child? Before Gu Shijio was going to say anything, she seemed to notice something and turned to look behind. Shen Yanma was standing at a short distance away from her. He was wearing a vulpine mask that carried an indecipherable expression while revealing the jet-black pupils of his eyes. When did this brat come in? How did he do so without making a single sound? Was he that skilled? Fui, when did you come here? Gu Shijio did not want to separate him from his original identity, as she wanted to keep the warm relations between them to ease up the long training process. Shin Nianmo's eyes first swept over her, and then to Yun Yanli. He replied lightly, I just arrived. In reality, he had come in the instance Gu Shijio freed Yun Yanli from his chains, so he had heard the whole latter half of their conversation. Shin Yanma leaned on a boulder and did not approach them. Yun Yanli shot him a glance. And you are? Gu Zijia's head ached. The two people in front of her are supposed to be enemies, logically speaking. Yun Yanli's father had acted against Shin Yanma before, while Shin Yanmo's mother is indirectly responsible for the sudden absence of the former emperor and the downfall of the Yun family. It was a huge relief that both of them have not embroiled in a conflict yet. For Yun Yanli case, it was easy to explain. He was now wounded and only possessed half of his normal external abilities. He was also a gentle and magnanimous person, so he would not shift the blame of the matter to Shin Yanma. But it was harder to say for Shin Yanma. His temperament was marked by eccentricity. Once he knows Yun Yanli's identity, he might just kill him right there and put matters to a close. Therefore, she tried to answer Yun Yanli's question in an obscure fashion. "He is my junior, Fui." Yun Yanli raised his eyebrow. "Is it Prince Fui?" He turned to Gu Shijio again. "The young palace master had mentioned Prince Fui to me recently." "Shijio, I didn't know that you had a junior here. You found a master, then? Whose disciple are you?" "It's hard to think of anyone who is worthy of being your master, so you've heard of my name." Shin Yanma chuckled. His voice was gentle and graceful. After exchanging greetings with Yun Yanli politely, he walked up front and held Gu Zijia's hand. "I never thought that she would be my junior as well. She had put a lot effort for me." "Alright Shijio, our master is still waiting for our medicine, so let's get going soon." Gu Shijio had never thought that he would hold her hand. She tried to break free from his grip, but to no avail. Yun Yanli was dumbfounded. "Juniors to each other? Which one of you is elder?" "Ask again in a year." Shin Yanma finally let go of his grasp. "Shijio, I can't believe that you've met an old friend here who really needs help. Have you thought of how to rescue him?" Gu Shijio could not help but steal a glance at him. When that fella called her Shijio, it sounded all too natural, as if he had always been addressing her that way. He was just calling her by the name Chongxing just now. It seemed that he had heard much of the conversation between Yun Yanli and her, so he knew her real name. "Of course, let's push it out." Gu Shijio immediately pushed Yun Yanli's wheelchair and walked away. Shin Yanmo's lips curved upward slightly. It seems like this man is not only unable to walk but unable to use his hands as well. Yun Yanli was speechless. He was an astute character, so he said, "Shijio, let me do it myself." He was in fact able to push himself. Gu Shijio looked at Yun Yanli's wrist, which was still covered in fresh blood, and cut him right off. "There is no need." She stole another glance at Shin Yanma, mused, and took out the cherry blossom snake. She extracted the snake's poison, filled it in a small bottle, and handed it to Shin Yanma. "Fui, you can go back first. This poison has been diluted by 100 times through the water from the glacier and was added with lanyue grass." She laid out in detail the ingredients of the medicine and eventually said, "Your juniors are in critical condition now. Let them each take this medicine, and then use your spiritual powers to help them to detoxify their bodies. Remember to put on a mask and gloves when approaching them." "My juniors? Are they not your juniors?" Shin Yanma asked in return. Of course, they are mine as well." That kid tends to find fault in what she said. "Alright, they are our juniors. What about you?" Shin Yanmo's eyes were gloomy. "Brother Yun's injury needs to be attended to immediately. We will split up, and I will visit you guys again after 3 days." "Whatever." Shin Yanma turned and left without any sign of reluctance. Gu Shijio was stunned for a moment. Seeing his figure disappear, she felt indecipherable remorse in her heart. Yun Yanli was somewhat regretful as well. "Shijio, your junior seems to be rather unhappy. It is all my fault starting a conflict between the both of you, no problem. He is just childish. It will all be fine soon." Gu Shijio pushed him out of the cave. "I have inspected your injury. The poison has hurt your veins, and, to top it with the fact that you have been rather impatient at training, you are in deep trouble, so much so that you lost control of both your legs. However, it is not incurable. Wait until I bring you out, we can look for a place to let you bathe with a couple of herbs, and with my spells, you could recover within 3 days." Gu Shijio had great medicinal skills. She had already inspected his veins while helping him to break free from the chains. Yun Yanli's injury was, in fact, not lethal. It was only because he had failed to get immediate treatment and was being experimented with different medicines that he ended up that way. Yun Yanli had been helping her a lot in the past. Throughout the few hundred years, he had been by her side as she paid the mighty immortals numerous visits. He had devoted his time and effort, so Gu Shijie was indebted to him. Now that he was in trouble, it was only natural for her to help him with all her abilities. She pushed him out to the tortuous cherry blossom forest and towards the side of a deep pond. The hills and cliffs surrounded them. To leave the place, they would have to ride on a bird or something, or by following the original route towards the tree palace and exit from there. Gu Shijie was carrying Yun Yanli, so she was unable to fly over. She was considering going through the tree palace when suddenly the sound of a bird broke the silence of the sky, and two huge birds emerged from within the clouds and landed between Yun Yanli and her. Purple feathers and a green abdomen, with jade-green tips at the wings. They were as big as storks and looked as grim as can be. Gu Zijie's heart stopped for a moment. Were these two birds the legendary birds with poisonous feathers? Such birds were a real rarity in the world. It was even more uncommon to spot two at the same time. This kind of bird was extraordinarily poisonous and was immune to any sort of poison. That was why they were able to pass through the blossom garden mist from the above. The two birds looked incredibly proud as they kept their chests up. One of the birds tilted its head to the side and looked at Gu Shijie. It suddenly spoke to her. "We will bring you there." Gu Shijie was puzzled. She sought more information. "Who is your master?" "We will bring you there." The bird only reiterated. Perhaps it only knew that sentence? Gu Shijie was somewhat disappointed. However, with the two birds before her, it meant that her biggest problem had been solved and she would not have to take the long way through the tree palace. Each bird could accommodate one rider comfortably, but two was rather tricky. Yun Yanli wanted to keep his dignity. He did not want Gu Shijie to take care of him as if he was a paralyzed person. He hit his palm on the ground and pushed himself up onto the back of one of the birds. Gu Shijie saw that he was rather agile, hence, she was not too concerned. She then hopped onto the back of the other bird. The birds then flapped their wings and took off. Fortunately, along the way, Gu Shijie realized that the two birds could understand her. Therefore, she could instruct them on the directions. They immediately flew to a nearby city and landed in a restaurant. Those kinds of birds were extremely rare. So, when Gu Shijie and Yun Yanli touched down, they caused a sensation and invited the people to crowd them. Is this the legendary bird with poisonous feathers? This is the kind with crested heads. Much more exotic than the normal ones. The kind with crested heads? I heard that Di Fui had tamed a pair of such birds a year ago. Could this pair be his? It couldn't be. Di Fui always takes extremely good care of his birds, and would never lend them to anyone. These two are not Di Fui's. Or could these two be friends of Di Fui? Since it is only Di Fui alone who has tamed such birds. They could only belong to him. Definitely. People were gossiping, and Gu Shijie could finally determine who was the owner of the pair of birds. It seemed that Xin Yanma was worried about her. Perhaps he was afraid that Yun Yanli and her could not leave the area. She felt a warmth gush in her heart, and extended her arm to tap the wings of the birds. "Help me send my gratitude to your master." The two birds were proud. After dropping Gu Shijie and Yun Yanli off, they flapped their wings and flew away, without even looking at the crowd. It seemed that Di Fui was popular in the area. Due to the birds, the cafe was fully occupied, but the owner still offered them 2 guest rooms for free as his courtesy to Di Fui. Gu Shijie was contented. She never thought that Shen Yanma could achieve such great things even at such a young age. He was indeed talented. Gu Shijie quickly settled their accommodation and immediately attended to Yun Yanli's injury. Gu Shijie was modest in terms of keeping a certain distance between them. She respected that they had different genders. She did not want to always spend time alone with Yun Yanli, hence, she used her directed audio to get into contact with Long Sai. Long Sai arrived shortly, in just 30 minutes. Long Sai was very capable and respected by Emperor Yi Tianli. He had ascended to the position of a general since he came to the upper bound. With considerable authority at his hands, he could be considered a level 3 official now. Yun Yanli was once the superior of Long Sai. Therefore, Long Sai was indebted to Yun Yanli and was comforted seeing that he was safe. Naturally, Long Sai agreed to help Gu Shijio with treating Yun Yanli's injury. After talking for a bit, Gu Shijio allowed Yun Yanli to meditate to facilitate his recovery while she went out to prepare the ingredients. Long Sai followed her and helped her. Shijio. Long Sai was finding it hard to say what he wanted to say. Gu Shijio took a glance at him. But you may speak frankly. There is no need to beat around the bush with me. Long Sai was surprised by her frankness. He went straight to the point. Do you think your Royal Highness Yun's words are trustable? Gu Shijio mused and tilted her head upwards to look at him. What are you suspicious about? Long Sai replied, I somehow feel that this is too much of a coincidence. It feels awry. Do you not find it suspicious at all? Gu Shijio muttered under her breath. It is not that I have not found it suspicious. In fact, I suspect that he is the mastermind behind the young palace master. However, I have examined his injury, and it seemed more like a long-term injury. His legs were also paralyzed by poison. He had traces of drugs in his body that should be caused by taking too many medicinal drugs. The poison had entered his veins, and this could only happen after a matter of 3 to 5 years. Had this only been deceit to ask for my sympathy, it would not be this way. Long Sai heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Gu Shijio with his eyes full of respect for her. Shijio, you are indeed very meticulous. Gu Shijio shook her head slightly. Had she not been meticulous, she would not have been alive. She did not want to hold her guard against her friends, but would instead want to go through life's ups and downs with them. However, had it been a friend that she had not met for a couple of years, she would still hold on to her guard. Since a couple of years was enough to alter a person's character, Gu Shijio mused for a moment and ordered Long Sai, Instructor Long, it would be better to keep the fact that Yun Yanli is still alive a secret from your majesty. Long Sai understood and nodded. Of course, only that, is your Royal Highness all right with keeping his identity a secret? The master of the world had changed. If the prince of the old king is still alive, that would invite suspicion from the new king. According to the political norm, the new king would give his all in removing all remnants of the previous ruling, especially a prince as ambitious as Yun Yanli. Although the new king had once worked under Yun Yanli, it did not mean that the new king would hold any empathy for Yun Yanli. So in order to continue living in the world, all Yun Yanli could do was to hide his identity. Gu Shijio had a headache as well. Yun Yanli was her friend that had helped her a lot back in the day, and she would not want to see anything bad happen to him. She could only take one step at a time. She would try her best to convince him to withdraw from politics. However, the final decision would be up to him. Gu Shijio attended to Yun Yanli's injury for 2 days. The process was somewhat complicated, and Long Sai had been by her side, assisting her all the time. 2 days later, Gu Shijio managed to remove all the remaining poison from Yun Yanli's body. However, since he had been poisoned for so many years, it was hard for his pulse to recover, and his external abilities had been diminished by half. The good thing was that, after the treatment, he could finally discard his wheelchair and stand on his feet. He could walk like normal, and could even use his spiritual power to lift himself. After he had recovered, he visited his sister's secluded palace. The siblings finally got to meet each other, and it was a bittersweet rendezvous. Yun Yanli was a child growing up from within the political turmoil, hence, he was rather shrewd. Yun Yanli did not dare stay there for long. After having a chat that lasted about 2 hours with his sister, he bid his goodbye. While the siblings were speaking, Gu Shijio waited outside. She did not wish to pry. Since Princess Yun lived in a lush, secure forest above the 8th heaven, Yun Yanli would not be able to sneak himself to meet his sister with his current external abilities. When Yun Yanli came out, his eyes were red. It was obvious that he had cried in there. Gu Shijio did not say anything and simply brought him away. Gu Shijio led him away and arrived at the 6th level where the demons and immortals coexisted. She then asked him about his plans. Yun Yanli inhaled a breath of air and said wryly, "It has ended up this way, what else could I plan for? I hope to find my father first since he is only missing." Gu Shijio shook her head in silence. Emperor Yun has been missing for such a long time. It would mean more bad news rather than good news. There was little possibility that he could still be alive. Looking for him would end up to no avail as well. She paused for a moment and said, "Your Highness, the change in empires happened by fate, as does among the immortals and the people of the land. An empire run entirely by a family would not last long. Your father's deeds when he ruled was not liked by the people either, and instead caused a wave of despair. Now that Yi Tianli rules the world, as you can see, the people are living a safe and prosperous life. Your Highness, you will need to be more open-minded, and not be overly determined, or else you would inflict trouble upon yourself." Yun Yanli's dark eyes fell on her. "Shijio, I know that you say so for my own good, only that he was not satisfied. The empire built by the Yun family had been substituted. He was once a member of the royal family, and now he had to instead scurry about hiding himself, not even able to reveal his true identity. He had to disguise himself when he went outdoors." Gu Shijio could understand him. However, if he did not learn to let go, he would only suffer. She could only help him to that point, so she tapped on Yun Yanli's shoulder and said, "Your Highness, you will need to learn to let go, especially when the circumstances have been finalized. Otherwise, you will only inflict problems onto yourself and not solve anything. With your abilities, even if you are no longer the king, you will be able to fare well in many aspects of your life." "Alright, I will stop right here. You can sleep on it. I am leaving." It was time for her to go and look for Shinyenma. She could also check on whether the poison in her junior's body had been cured. Yun Yanli was somewhat reluctant. However, he did not know what plans Gu Shijio had. So, he smiled and responded, "Shijio, I am heavily indebted to you. No matter how I turn out to be eventually, I would have regained my freedom, and hence, I would consider what you said. Is there any chance of us meeting again? If fate brings us together, we will see each other again one day." Gu Shijio did not turn back. Yun Yanli was sitting in the room while staring at where Gu Shijio before she disappeared. Moments later, he said, "Shijio, I believe that we will meet each other again someday, and that day will arrive soon." Gu Shijio stood at the top floor of the building. She took out a directed audio talisman and closed her eyes for some time. She then started contacting Shinyenma, and as usual, he did not show any sign of picking up. When she was going through danger in the tree palace with Shinyenma, she gave him a directed audio talisman, saying that they could keep in touch with each other through the device. Since splitting with Shinyenma, she had only contacted him through the directed audio device once. Even then, they were not entirely on good terms. When she managed to reach him, she thanked him for his legendary crested birds with poisonous feathers. She spoke more than 10 sentences while Shinyenma kept silent. After listening to her, he merely chuckled but did not say anything before hanging up. Later on, when Gu Shijio started contacting him again, he stopped answering. It was the same this time. The directed audio talisman glowed in her palm for more than 10 times, but no one picked up. Could that bastard have thrown her directed audio talisman away? Gu Shijio had a strong feeling that she could be right. She thought about it and decided to go to Yuhangjinren training ground, Wujie Hill. That was also what she had promised Yuhangjinren. She still had the appearance of a 12 to 13-year-old kid and introduced herself as Rin Chongxing before going up Wujie Hill. Those who were guarding the gates had been ordered to let her in. Hence, they invited her gleefully up the hill, while addressing her as their senior. Gu Shijio asked the guard, "Has your big brother returned?" "He came back once yesterday, but he left again this morning." Gu Shijio was surprised. If Shinyenma was not at the hill, then what was she going there for? Where did he go? The apprentice looked at Gu Shijio warily. "Do you like big brother as well?" Gu Shijio replied nonchalantly, "Yeah, I like him. He is cute." The male apprentice said was dumbfounded. That was his first time hearing someone describing his big brother with the adjective cute. He found it rather rare. Nonetheless, he was excited. Sister, a lot of people like Big Brother. Those who had sisters always got envious of him and would silently see him as their rival. Shin Yanmo's figure appeared in Gu Zijia's mind. The little fella really had a dangerous face, therefore, it was probably very easy for him to attract girls. Gu Shijio listened to the gossip about Shin Yanmo for a while, and finally interrupted the boy apprentice who had been rambling. You have yet to tell me where his big brother gone to. The boy apprentices were rather embarrassed. We are not sure either. Big brother tends to do his things secretively, and he has not returned to the hill much throughout these 2 years. However, our master would definitely be aware of it. You could go up the hill and ask him. Gu Shijio kept her disappointment to herself. All right, then she would go and visit Yu Hangjinren since she was his apprentice. It was courtesy for her to visit him. The apprentice guided her into the hill, and she then saw numerous tall buildings built by the hillside. Shrouded among the phoenix tree forest, with green stones being paved into pathways underneath them, coupled with the drizzle and the moist green, it looked somewhat secluded. Gu Shijio ascended the stairs and reached the top. She met a young man. When he saw her, all of a sudden, his eyes lit up, and he rushed towards her. Sister Chongsheng. The young man was, in fact, Si Qing. Seeing that he was up and about, it was obvious that the venom had been cured. Si Qing was exhilarated to see her. He then took her to the living area. Gu Shijio met Yu Hangjinren at the hall of Wujia Hill and greeted him politely. Yu Hangjinren was all fresh. Chongsheng, you are finally back. That plan of yours was of great leverage, and the medicine you prepared was rather effective as well. Si Qing and Qing Luo both took them and fully recovered after resting for half a day. Gu Zijia's lips curved upwards. She knew that the medicine would be effective. Jinren, where is Nianmo? After Gu Shijio and Yu Hangjinren casually chatted for a while, Gu Shijio went for her ultimate goal. Yu Hangjinren was puzzled as he looked at her pretty face. You came because of him? Of course, had it not been for that little fella, why would she call Yu Hangjinren her master? In fact, her external abilities were comparable to that of Yu Hangjinren's. Gu Shijio did not answer. She waited patiently for Yu Hangjinren's answer. She did not expect Yu Hangjinren to answer her in a solemn tone. Chongsheng, you have achieved so much at such a young age. It is obvious that you are a genius. You are still young and should leave matters pertaining to relationship aside. Focus on your training instead. One day, you will be a successful person. Gu Shijio was annoyed. It seemed that Yu Hangjinren had treated her as an admirer of Shin Yanmo. Yu Hangjinren continued, although Nianma looks like an adult, he is essentially still a 6-year-old child. He is not worth you adoring him. Chongsheng, you are mature, and I hope that you will prioritize the bigger picture. Gu Shijio rubbed the inner corners of her eyebrows and cut Yu Hangjinren's nagging off. Jinren, you have misunderstood. I do not have any special feelings for him. He is still a child. How will I hold such an intention towards him? She would not do such a thing. Gu Shijio looked at Yu Hangjinren sincerely and continued, I only appreciate him for his talent, and would like to help him with his training, so that his external abilities can improve. Yu Hangjinren was dubious. You want to help him with his training? How are you going to help? Why would you have such an intention? From how you guys spoke to each other that day, it seemed like that was your first time seeing each other, and I have never heard Nianma mention you beforehand as well. Gu Shijio had such proficient external abilities, with such great capabilities. Had Shin Nianma known her beforehand, he would have mentioned her. Yu Hangjinren's had incessant questions, while Gu Shijio only answered in 7 words. I only appreciate him for his talents. Yu Hangjinren was speechless. What do you mean by appreciating him for his talents? I think it is just love at first sight. And you have cracked such an excuse. Qing Luo, who had been standing there, could not help but say it aloud. Gu Shijio landed her gaze on Qing Luo. The young lady was agitated, her face was flushed. Obviously, she saw Gu Shijio as her rival. When the young lady got jealous, she would become irrational. Hence, Gu Shijio smiled, and on her pretty face emerged two dimples. You are right, it was love at first sight. He is the love of my heart, the light from the moon, and my red-colored rose. She cringed at herself as she spoke. The other apprentices in the hall were also shaken. Qing Luo was dumbfounded. The young lady was so mad that her face had turned pale. There is no use if you like him because he will never like you back. He knows that you would latch onto him. That is why he left. And he had left with Sister Jinghua. Sister Jinghua's medical skills are 1,000 times better than yours. Her master's medicinal skills are 10,000 times better than yours. Big Brother does not need you to help him with his training. He has masters to teach him. Gu Shijio turned to look at Yu Hangjinren. Should Nianma not be learning under you for 10 years? Has some other master apprenticed him already? Yu Hangjinren heaved a sigh. Nianma is extremely smart. Within a matter of 5 years, he had learned everything that I could teach him. He is only coming back this time to bid his goodbye. Yesterday, Fengxing's apprentice, Guan Jinghua, came to fetch him, and after having his farewell meal, he left with Guan Jinghua. Gu Shijio was in disbelief. The little fella had tricked her, which means she allowed herself to be apprenticed to a master for no reason. After giving off a sigh, she turned and left. Spiritual Master Yu Hang was stunned. He never expected her to leave so decisively. He quickly said, Chongqing, you promised that you would join my apprenticeship. Gu Shijio paused. She turned back and smiled. Master, I have already praised you. However, I did not promise to stay in Mountain Wujia. Well, please take care of yourself. I have to go now. She arched her hand and walked away. Spiritual Master Yu Hang was stunned. In the past 2 years, there had been many girls chasing after his baby apprentice. However, no one chased after him so openly like Gu Shijio. Her intention was clear. It was all about Shen Yanma. If Shen Yanma were here, she would stay. Otherwise, she would leave. She did not even want to pretend for the sake of keeping the peace. Who was Shen Yanma to her? What was Mountain Wujia to her? Spiritual Master Yu Hang had lived in this world for so long, and it was the first time he was ignored in such a manner. He was not happy and his face turned serious. Chongqing, as my disciple, you cannot come and leave freely as you like. He flicked his finger, and the door of the hall slammed shut. Spiritual Master Yu Hang was a first-class master in this continent. His accomplishment spells is of the highest order. Even Divine Lord, Shinjioli, often praised him. Otherwise, Shinjioli would not let his precious son worship him and be his apprentice. He had been practicing for 2,000 years, and his spiritual power was already at the 6th level of a mighty immortal. It was already a top-notch existence in this Saha world. Such a person always had a strong aura. When they were in a jovial state, it was not visible. However, when they were serious, the atmosphere around them would feel frozen. Some weaker disciples could even struggle to breathe. Everyone could not help but take a few steps back and hold their breath. The disciples with weaker skills were already pale due to the immense pressure, and their hearts were pumping very rapidly. Gu Shijio slowly turned back. She raised her eyebrows and looked at Spiritual Master Yu Hang. Are you going to make me stay forcibly? Her expression was very calm, and her clothes were fluttering. The intense aura of Spiritual Master Yu Hang seemed to have no impact on her. Chongqing, you are now my apprentice and not a guest, Spiritual Master Yu Hang said sternly. Since you are my disciple, I have the right to control you and prevent you from leaving the mountain. You have to stay on the mountain. Emotions were controlling this outstanding little girl. As her master, he had an obligation to bring her back to the right path. She should not make any more mistakes. Gu Shijio looked down and sighed softly. Her voice was cold. By right, it should be the case. It seems like if I always recognize you as my master, I can't freely go down the mountain. That being the case, I am sorry, Spiritual Master Yu Hang, I can only expel myself from your apprenticeship. I can't worship you as my teacher anymore. Spiritual Master Yu Hang was speechless. The other disciples were shocked too. It was the first time in such a long life. Most of the time, They only heard that the master had to expel a disciple from their apprenticeship, never the other way around. The face of spiritual master Yuhang was dark. Chongsheng, are you trying to be a traitor? Do you know that being a traitor in this continent is a big sin? Once a disciple betrays their apprenticeship, the lightest punishment is to abolish all the learnings from the apprenticeship and get expelled, while the heaviest punishment is to be chased and killed by the whole world. Anyone can kill and punish you. Gu Shijio looked calm and cold. Spiritual Master Yuhang, I have never learned any skill from your apprenticeship. How are you going to abolish my learning? Spiritual Master Yuhang remained silent. He could not answer her question. Gu Shijio flicked her finger. Gu Shijio continued speaking casually, as for having the whole world chase me. Do you think I will be afraid of it? Spiritual Master Yuhang sensitively grasped the meaning behind her words. Who are you? It did not sound like a sentence that should be asked of a little girl. Gu Shijio smirked. She made a turn and a colorful light flashed. She restored her original appearance. The clothes she wore this time could be changed according to her size. Thus, this time, there was no pressure to restore the original body. As her body was changing, she quickly put on new robes from her storage space. She completed those tasks at lightning speed. After the colorful light flashed, a person wearing a dark purple gown could be seen with a mask. Even though Gu Shijio did not talk, her aura was quite compelling. Spiritual Master Yuhang suddenly widened his eyes and took a few steps back. You are the woman who appeared at Nianmo's 1-year-old party and gave him a bracelet? Spiritual Master Yuhang had a profound impression about it. Therefore, when she appeared with the same outlook at the moment, Spiritual Master Yuhang could immediately recognize her. Gu Shijio smirked. Spiritual Master Yuhang, can you still remember me? Spiritual Master Yuhang was in utter shock. When Gu Shijio delivered the gift, she turned and disappeared right away. She could enter and leave the Fantian Palace of the Divine Lord freely. Thus, it had triggered a massive discussion among the guests to guess her identity. Gu Shijio had always visited this continent, but there was no trace of her. She was very mysterious. Usually, she lived like a normal person. However, when she attacked, it would be very striking, and most of the time, her opponents would be severely injured to the extent that even their parents could not recognize them. When people in this continent talked about her, they generally equated her with the Divine Lord and the Great Devil. They thought that she was a legend who ranked just below the Divine Lord and the Great Devil. In the eyes of the people on this continent, the status of this mysterious person was still extremely high. It was even higher than Spiritual Master Yuhang. In fact, Spiritual Master Yuhang had always wanted to meet her, but he was never able to find the chance. He could not locate her at all. However, he did not expect her to appear in this situation. He did not even think that the beautiful little girl was the mysterious grimace person. The other disciples who were present were also stunned and looked at her. No one could speak for a moment. Even the arrogant Qing Luo also stunned and dared not speak again. Spiritual Master Yuhang, do you think I still need to worship you as my teacher? Spiritual Master Yuhang was very angry. He said, Of course, you don't need to worship me as your teacher. However, were you trying to fool me by transforming into a kid? No wonder that this little girl had such a high skill. Spiritual Master Yuhang had been excited to have such a talented apprentice for 3 days. He had not been sleeping well due to the excitement. He had been looking forward to her arrival even more than the stars and moon. However, he never expected all this to unravel. Gu Shijio said leisurely, Spiritual Master Yuhang, you are wrong. I transformed into a little girl because I needed to enter into the tree palace to fool the guards and rescue your disciples. I did not do that to fool you. Spiritual Master Yuhang finally understood the whole situation from his disciple. After Gu Shijio mentioned it, he knew that Gu Shijio was telling the truth. However, it was fine to transform into a little girl to rescue people. However, why would you say you want to worship me as your teacher using the identity of a little girl? Spiritual Master Yuhang was not convinced. Gu Shijio gently sighed. At that moment, I did not want to reveal my identity, so it was not convenient to restore my original appearance. As for worshipping you as my teacher, it is actually a misunderstanding. I really want to take Nianma as my disciple. However, he refused to worship me. I have my own reason to stay by his side. Therefore, I was aggrieved to join your apprenticeship to be his senior sister apprentice. Was she aggrieved to join? Spiritual Master Yu Hang's lips were shivering. He almost got choked by her words and could not breathe. Did she know that there were so many young talents in this continent that were trying to worship him as a teacher? At that time, the previous famous crown prince Yun Yanli also wanted to worship him as a teacher. However, due to his lower skill, he was not qualified to join his apprenticeship. Now, Gu Shijio said that she was aggrieved to join. Nonetheless, with her capability, it was genuinely aggrieved for her to worship him as a teacher. It took him a long time to ask, "What is your reason to stay beside Nianma?" He is only a 6-year-old kid. Spiritual Master Yu Hang's voice was full of doubt. It sounded like Gu Shijio was an old cow who likes to eat the fresh grass. It made Gu Shijio somewhat unhappy. She stepped forward, and Spiritual Master Yu Hang immediately stepped back in alert. Nonetheless, he still wanted to protect his disciple. He tried to persuade Gu Shijio, "I think you are even older than me. Although Nianma looks like an adult, he is just a kid. Even if you can transform into a younger look, you are an experienced master. You are not suitable for Nianma. There are so many talented men of your age in this world. You should let the kid go." Gu Shijio was speechless. The anger in her heart had triggered the mischievous cells in her. She chuckled at that last remark. "Spiritual Master Yu Hang, you can rest assured." Spiritual Master Yu Hang heaved a sigh of relief, but the next sentence said by Gu Shijio almost made him vomit blood. "I do not like men of my age. I like to eat fresh grass. I will definitely want Nianma and stay by his side. I will not mistreat him and will treat him like a precious baby." After she finished the shocking sentence, Gu Shijio naturally turned around and left freely. It left Spiritual Master Yu Hang and the remaining disciples stunned. Gu Shijio felt rather regretful for having said those things. She said those offensive words just to make Spiritual Master Yu Hang feel frustrated. However, she did not expect this to be spread to the public. When Gu Shijio woke up at the inn and had lunch in the cafe, she suddenly realized that she had become the topic of discussion for everyone. She was furious with it. "Hey, have you heard? The mysterious grimace person has eyed on the son of the Divine Lord and the Great Devil, Nianma. She personally came to Mount Wujie to look for him. She even transformed into a little girl and wanted to stay with him. Well, I also heard that. The mysterious grimace person should be thousands of years old. She actually likes a kid. Taste. Her taste is so strange." "I know, right? I heard that the mysterious grimace person has a scary face. No one could differentiate her gender. No one actually dared to approach her. And now she has eyes on little Nianma. She not only used a bracelet to constrain him, now she even announced that she wants to marry little Nianma at Mount Wujie. She would kill anyone who blocks her. His parents are not around at this moment. It will be a miserable moment for him." Sigh. "I agree with you. It is really a disaster." Countless rumors poured into Gu Zijia's ears, which made her repent her action. Was it possible for her to turn back time and take back the words she had uttered? It was making her miserable. She sat alone in the room. While listening to the rumors outside, she took a look at the mirror. The woman in the mirror looked like a flower. Her skin was as delicate as a baby's, bright as the flowers that bloomed in the spring. She looked young and youthful. Why did they refer to her as an ugly old lady? They actually said that she looked scary. Frankly speaking, there were not many ladies that looked as good as her on this continent. No one dared to pursue her? That was because of her high vision and the fact that she did not like anyone. If she were really interested, she could just show a little interest and there would many men waiting to marry her. Gu Shijio silently complained in her heart. It was the little man, Nianmo's fault. Although he was so young, he was also very cunning. Because of him, She was now infamous on this side of the planet. Sadly, she thought that she treated Shen Yanma quite well. They had cooperated to take down the enemy and even find a cure for his juniors. It was a pleasant experience. Why would he suddenly become so arrogant? In fact, Gu Shijio had spent a night wondering how to find Shen Yanma. She knew the temperament of Master Fengxing. The medical skills of this man were unique, but his personality was equally strange. He was a famous guardian who treated his disciples better than his own son. He would not accept disciples easily either. Once he accepts a disciple, he would treat them wholeheartedly. His own disciples were always the best. They were all geniuses who came from noble families. If his disciples were bullied, he would seek revenge for them that would be far worse than what they received. He was always biased toward his own disciples and would do anything for them. Once he accepted someone as a disciple, it was impossible for others to grab from him or her. It was even more difficult than digging out his heart. Moreover, he had a rule. The disciples under his apprenticeship must not have a romantic relationship before they finished their learning. If an affair were discovered, he would not hesitate to separate them. Coincidentally, Gu Shijio had just offended his 2 taboos. In fact, Gu Shijio only offended one. She really wanted to grab his disciple from him, but she had never wanted to form a romantic relationship with Shen Yanma. However, after this rumor had circulated, Master Fengxing would definitely put her at the top on his blacklist. What role could she use to find Shen Yanma again? She could not use her original appearance, and could not transform into a little girl. It was because it had been stated in the rumor that she used to turn into a little girl to approach Shen Yanma and try to be his senior sister apprentice. Therefore, Master Fengxing would definitely be prepared and would never accept new disciples that seemed like her. Would it be a good idea to break into the mountain to steal him away? Master Fengxing was famous for medical skill, but his other aspects were still not very strong. Although there would probably be robust mechanisms in his mountain, Gu Shijio was also an expert in solving mechanisms. She was confident in her abilities. However, she was afraid that even with all that effort, the arrogant boy would not want to go with her. Gu Shijio took out the directed audio spell from her storage space. Should she try to contact him again to explain her sincerity to help him practice? Gu Shijio made up her mind to take a try. This time, once she switched on the spell, it was picked up right away by the person at the other side. Shen Yanma was cold. Shijio? Anything? His sound was actually very soft. Gu Shijio was now pleased. She thought that he still did not want to pick up her calls. It was good that he picked it up. She was prepared to fight a long battle with him, but after she heard his voice, she quickly took the chance to convince him. She coughed a little and tried to explain, "Nin." Suddenly, the directed audio spell was disconnected. All the words that Gu Shijio had prepared to say were stuck in her throat. She looked at the disconnected note in stunned silence. Why was it disconnected? Was it broken? She could not help but check the directed audio spell. However, she did not find any problem. She thought for a moment and dialed again. This time, the spell did not even connect. But just when Gu Shijio thought that the other party would not pick up, he finally picked up, but this time, he was a lot colder. "What do you want?" Gu Shijio was speechless. She rubbed her eyebrows and finally realized. "Fui, why are you looking for me? Are you going to confess your feelings?" Shen Yanma was obviously frustrated. Gu Shijio asked, "Did you hear those rumors already?" "Rumors? Are you referring the rumor about you running to Mount Wujie to find me? And that you want to eat fresh grass and want to stay with me? That you want to take care of me like a precious baby?" Shen Yanma went quiet for a while. Gu Shijio was not sure if he was happy or upset. All she could tell was that he had heard. Most of the words spoken were her own. Who was this big mouth? Gu Shijio tried to cool down and speak sincerely. "In fact, I said those words to make your master angry. They were not true. You can rest assured that I have absolutely no feelings toward you. You are still young, and I am not a pervert. Even if you were an adult, I have no interest in you. I just want to teach you and help you develop. I do not have any selfish intention." If she could have a video call with Shen Yanma, Gu Shijio would definitely let him see the sincerity in her eyes. There was a moment of silence, followed by a chuckle. What you said is all fake. She could not hear the anger from his voice, but Gu Shijio rubbed her forehead again. That was to make your junior female apprentice angry, so they were just nonsenses but have created such a big discussion in the town. She did not expect that it would be the topic of the day in just a night. I am sorry. Gu Shijio sincerely apologized. Whether she did it deliberately or not, she had caused trouble to the other party. Why did you say sorry? Shin Nianmo's tone was unpredictable. This time, my anger has caused trouble for you. Rest assured, I will find the right time to explain the matter in public, to let everyone know that I do not want to eat fresh grass. Gu Shijio guaranteed. To get this boy to meet her objective, she could do anything and really put down her status to apologize. There was no sound at the other end. Gu Shijio felt that it was difficult to get her message across through the directed audio. She asked, Fui, where are you? I want to see you. Let's meet and talk. I have nothing to say to you. Don't look for me again. I am not interested in accompanying you or learning from you. He hung up the directed audio spell. Gu Shijio was speechless. She felt that it was indeed big trouble for her now. Gu Shijio never thought that it would be so hard to train someone. She sat there for a moment and then dialed back unrelentingly. She dialed a dozen times in a row, but he did not pick up any of her calls. Apparently, the kid had made up his mind to ignore her. Little Tsong, can you tell me what should I do next? Gu Shijio knocked on the bracelet on her wrist. The firmament stone had been strangely quiet recently. It was as if each word uttered out of its mouth was worth gold. In the past, it always liked to nag around her ears, but lately, it seemed like it was running out of battery. Even on the rare occasion that it did speak, it kept its explanations brief. Master, you can do it. If the other party did not buy in at all, what else she could do? She could not kidnap him and forcibly teach him martial arts, right? This kid was very rebellious. Even if she captured him, if he insisted on not learning or practicing, she could not do anything. She could not put a knife on his neck and force him to practice, right? Little Tsong, I want to give up. Gu Shijio was a little bit depressed. Master, don't. It was rare that this time the firmament stone actually talked more. You can do it. There is nothing you can't solve in this world. This should not beat you, right? Master, think about Mr. Huang too. His resurrection is totally dependent on you. Gu Shijio lowered her eyes. Yes, she did for the sake of Huang too, the person who had been good to her wholeheartedly. For his resurrection, this was totally worth it. She finally regained her spirits. She first looked at the Muscle and Lu Wu, who were eating the food in front of the table. After these two beasts sent the kids back home according to her instructions, they came back to look for Gu Shijio. To reward them, Gu Shijio had ordered a tableful of food that were their favorite dishes. The Muscle liked to gossip. While it was eating, it was also listening to Gu Shijio. At this moment, it interrupted, Master, what is so difficult? You should just break into the clan of Master Fengxing and catch that little guy. You can keep him with you and slowly teach him. Never let him go if he is not willing to learn and only release him when he is willing to learn. Lu Wu shook its tail. Master, let's do this. It would be more straightforward to do it this way. Gu Shijio took a breath, and she tapped the table with her fingers. All right. If it does not work through the soft way, we try the hard way. Gu Shijio and her two beasts sounded like a group of bandits that were about to commit a crime. The firmament stone was speechless and raised its objection. I am afraid that it would not work through the hard work for this guy. Master, have you ever heard the saying, suffering makes people grow up, and their ups and downs make them more aggressive? The life of Fui is too smooth now. You might as well create some trouble for him, let him try to solve it. Since he does not want to worship you as a teacher and doesn't want to let you teach him martial arts, then you just be his opponent. A decent opponent can also force him to grow up. This was a good idea. Gu Zijia's eyes lit up. She raised her hand and tapped on the firmament stone. Little Tsong, you are a genius. I will try to persuade him once again. If it's really unsuccessful, I will just become his biggest rival and give him a lot of hard times. Do you want to persuade him personally? Do you know where he is? I know. If I estimated correctly, he should be in the Fengyun Valley of Master Fengxing. I think he is now attending the reception feast of his new junior apprentices. Gu Shijio had such speculation because she had faintly heard some voices and noise during the conversation with him earlier. Shen Yanma was indeed in the Fengyun Valley, and indeed attending the feast. Although Master Fengxing did not have many disciples, the ones he had were all elites. Although Master Fengxing did not have many disciples, they were all notable elites. Each of them was much older than him. The youngest one was still 10 years older. Guan Jinhua, who took him into the valley, was a beautiful girl who was 28 years old. Guan Jinhua was very talented in medicine. She was already famous at a young age because of her charm and personality, which was lively and bold. She was the favorite disciple of Master Fengxing, as well as the sweetheart of her senior brother disciples. Many would start falling in love around this age, hence, there were plenty of senior brother apprentices always around her. However, given the strict rules of Master Fengxing, no one dared to make a move on her and claimed only to be protecting her. They were willing to wait for the time when she completed her studies so that they could start pursuing her. Guan Jinhua naturally understood the minds of her senior brother apprentices, but she never revealed anything to them and enjoyed the attention she received. She seemed to be sweet but also ruthless to everyone. This made the unmarried brothers restless and even more interested in her. Although Guan Jinhua liked being wooed by the male apprentices, she had never been impressed by anyone. She always felt that these brothers were still not worthy of getting her. She even thought that no one in this world could deserve her until she met Shen Yanma. He was only a 6-year-old child, but he had the most charming looks, especially when he smiled. Guan Jinhua simply could not resist. She spent time with Shen Yanma but quickly realized that he was not as enthusiastic as the other senior brother apprentices. Instead, he was somewhat cold to her. Nonetheless, she was attracted to him. She felt that every single move he made was perfect. It undoubtedly made her heart skip a few beats. Of course, she did not dare to reveal her feelings. She worried that if she got rejected, she would not even be friends with him. Thus, she preferred for them to remain as good friends. Although Shen Yanma was the youngest among them, he still did not recognize any person as his senior apprentice. He would only do so if they had more exceptional abilities than him. Shen Yanma's knowledge in the field of medicine was unparalleled. None of his seniors could match him. Hence, after a round of trials, Shen Yanma had become the senior brother apprentice of these people. Tonight, it was the initiation banquet thrown for Shen Yanma. The tables were full of wines and dishes which included material from the sea, the sky, and the land. Each dish was highly nutritious and useful for improving one's spiritual power. Everyone around the table laughed and cheered through the lively and crowded night. During the party, some people talked about the gossip that they had just heard. Apparently, Master Fengxing had received a letter from spiritual Master Yuhang to warn him about the mysterious grimace-faced woman. Initially, the people were still doubtful of the rumors, but now, after their master received the letter, they naturally believed it. The reaction from the audience was somewhat mixed. Though they felt it was rather laughable, they were also infuriated by the news. How could an older woman fall for a 6-year-old kid? It was really inappropriate. Shen Yanma was no ordinary kid though. He had a unique identity. He was the son of the Divine Lord and the Great Devil. Both spiritual Master Yuhang and Master Fengxing valued him a lot. They certainly could not let anything bad happen to him. They could never explain it to his parents when they returned. Therefore, they were extremely concerned about his affairs. Master Fengxing looked at Shen Yanma and asked him, "Yanma, is spiritual Master Yuhang correct? The mysterious grimace person transformed into a little girl to get near to you? She even wanted to join spiritual Master Yuhang's apprenticeship and be your sister apprentice?" Shen Yanma was stunned but did not deny. Yes. Master Fengxing looked at Shen Yanma rather seriously. This new disciple seemed too enchanting and attracted people of all ages. How does she look like? One of the brother apprentices was curious. I heard that she looks ugly and that people can't even differentiate if she is a man or a woman. Really? I heard that the little girl she transformed into was stunning. That is an illusion. Naturally, it will look beautiful. However, it is not her true appearance. I heard that when she appeared in her real identity, she would always wear a scary mask and refuse to reveal her face. She must be ugly. It's hard to say, perhaps she is a beautiful lady. Guan Jinhua, who had been quietly listening, could not help but laugh. She must be ugly. Her tone was filled with an air of arrogance. All eyes fell on Guan Jinhua, waiting for her to explain. Guan Jinhua smiled. I am a woman, so I understand women. If a woman has an attractive appearance and is also talented, she will not hide her original appearance. Why would someone hide their beauty? Trust me, if she is a beautiful lady, she will definitely try to let people see her face. It was apparent that Guan Jinhua was describing herself. Every time she went out, she showed her authentic appearance. She would also dress beautifully because she liked the feeling of being praised. It made her feel like a princess. It was said that women knew women best. After Guan Jinhua explained her thoughts, more than half of the people present believed her words. Some people could not help but make fun of the grimace-faced woman. Perhaps there is chicken skin and hair behind her mask. It is possible. Someone then asked Shen Yanma, eldest brother apprentice, have you seen her original appearance? Is it scary? Shen Yanma had been sitting at the table and drinking quietly. When he heard the question, he faintly glanced at the person who asked it. It is not scarier than your face. The man had a big head and small body. His facial features were also rather flat, and his lips were unnaturally prominent. He looked quite like a caveman. He could often scare people when he went out. Hence, Shen Yanma definitely struck a sensitive spot which made the man speechless. Guan Jinhua was excited by this reply. She chuckled and added, even if she does not look scary, it must be true that she is not beautiful. Shen Yanma raised his hand and drank from his glass of wine. He spoke rather calmly, she is more beautiful than you. Guan Jinhua was speechless. What he said had hurt her pride. Everyone remained silent. They were surprised that he defended the mysterious grimace person. Master Fengxing looked at Shen Yanma in deep thought. When he was about to ask something, the directed audio spell beside Shen Yanma's waist lit up. Shen Yanma was holding his glass of wine at the time and sipped it slowly. However, when the directed audio spell lit up, his fingers went stiff, and some of the wine spilled out of his glass. He immediately put down the glass and said, "Excuse me." He turned around and went out. He seemed to dash out of the room. Everyone looked at each other in surprise. When Shen Yanma first arrived, he was always calm and quiet. This was the first time everyone saw him being so hurried. Guan Jinhua bit her lips and pondered for a moment. After a while, she turned around and went out. She saw Shen Yanma standing at the corner of the hall, holding a device in his hand and talking to someone. His voice was clear and sounded explicit joyful. There was candlelight shone on his body, exposing his tall and straight figure. Because the chatty voices behind Guan Jinhua, she could not really hear what Shen Yanma had said. Hence, she could not help but walk 2 steps forward. From a closer distance, Guan Jinhua managed to capture a bit of the conversation. She faintly heard Shen Yanma said, "You don't have to look for me again. I'm not interested in accompanying you for the mission." Then, Shen Yanma hung up the call and turned around. He saw Guan Jinhua standing not far behind him. The atmosphere around him was cold. When he stared at her, Guan Jinhua felt like a glass of ice water drenched her heart. She was nervous and smiled awkwardly. "Senior brother apprentice, who is it?" Shen Yanma stared at her. "Do I have a duty to tell you when I talk to someone?" His words were piercingly cold. Guan Jinhua remained silent. She had been walking along with Shen Yanma and stayed by his side the whole day. He was quite a gentleman to her all the while. However, In such a short period, he had been rude to her twice. Her self-esteem was a little bit hurt. When she wanted to say something more, Shenyan had passed her and entered the hall. This young man was in a bad mood. But he looked rather pleased when he received a call via the directed audio spell. Why did his mood change so fast after a few minutes of talking? Who was the other party? What did they talk about? Shenyan was such a good person. The woman who chased after him must be more than the fishes in a river. Who could disturb his emotions so much? There were many questions in Guan Jinhua's mind, but no one could answer them aside from Shenyan. The banquet was supposed to run until late into the night, but Shenyan excused himself, telling the rest that he was tired, hence, he left the hall in advance. Since he had left, there was no reason to continue to the party. Therefore, Master Fengxing pondered for a moment and then asked Guan Jinhua to stay and dismissed the rest of his disciples. Master Fengxing asked Guan Jinhua about what happened when she picked Shenyan up. Guan Jinhua had stayed in Mountain Wujie for a day, so she had heard some gossips. She heard about the story of Ren Chongqing and Shenyan rescuing the young children. Qing Luo brought it up when they casually chatted. Qing Luo had always disliked Ren Chongqing, so when she talked about it, she added a lot of exaggeration that was unfavorable to Ren Chongqing. At that time, Guan Jinhua felt that Ren Chongqing was a cunning girl. However, when she knew that she was the mysterious grimace person, she added a lot of other unfavorable things when she storied to Master Fengxing. The more Master Fengxing listened, the tighter his eyebrows knitted. As far as he knew, although this mysterious grimace person was not very close to the people in this world, she was still very powerful. She had never failed to get what she wanted. If she really had an eye on Shenyan, it was going to be very troublesome. It was rare for Shenyan to skip practice and lay down in bed leisurely. The directed audio spell in his waist still lighted up once every few seconds. Apparently, that person had not given up on him yet and still tried to convince him. He closed his eyes, did not want to pick up. It was meaningless to pick up. He knew that the conversation would be still the same as what they had talked about previously. In fact, he did not know what feelings he had towards Gu Shijio. When she wore her mask, he had been tortured by her before, and he seemed to hate her. However, she was also Ren Chongqing, as well as the big sister who sent him home when he was a kid. Over the past few years, there were many women around him who fancied him. However, he had never had any feelings towards them and did not even care about them. But the three women who Gu Shijio transformed into gave him different kinds of feelings. He instinctively wanted to get close to her and wanted to hold her hand. He wanted to hug her even when she was with him. He would be inexplicably excited, and there was a desire from his body. Although Shenyan was only 6 years old, his body had already grown entirely as an adult, and his attitude was also like an adult. He naturally understood what this desire meant. However, he did not know why he had this feeling for her. He hoped that she would care for him and like him. He was excited just thinking about her. However, this good mood disappeared after receiving her directed audio, as he found out that he was only part of her mission, and she just treated him as a child. It was hard to imagine that someone like her would pick up such a task. Who was the person who gave her the task? Who could influence her to train a young kid? Which bastard dared to push her like this? He looked at the spell, and it finally stopped flashing. It seemed like she finally gave up. He was relieved and disappointed at the same time. He was lying on his side and pondered about the situation. Based on Gu Zijia's character, she had not given up yet. She would definitely try to find him. This thought gave him mixed feelings. He felt that he did not want to be found by her but actually hoped that she would come. He rejected her purely because he wanted her to understand that he did not want to be part of her mission. Obviously, Shenyan was in a dilemma now. She was much older than him. In fact, it seemed that she was of the same generation as his parents. Although she could probably be able to train him, it was actually quite annoying that she continued to look for him just to complete her mission. However, he could not let her go even though he didn't want to be involved in any romantic relationship so early. He suddenly remembered the flower bouquet that was thrown when his parents got married. At that time, the flower bouquet was accepted by Gu Shijio, and Gu Shijio had accidentally hit him with it. Yi Tianli had joked with him and said that it was the start of his life of romance. He did not understand that during that time. Now when he recalled this, he was a bit shocked. Was it true that he was fated to be with Gu Shijio? Was she his better half? Shen Yinma was shocked by his own thoughts. Another directed audio spell at his waist suddenly lit up. His heart moved, he picked up, and a voice came from the other side. Brother Fui, I have traced the place where the young palace master stays. The sun was warm. It was the most vibrant moment in the morning. Generally, when someone wanted to stay hidden, he or she would choose to move around at night. It was the best time for sin. As everyone knew that thieves had this inclination, many secret places were not allowed to be visited and had tighter security at night. This time, Gu Shijio went against the norm. She chose the most unlikely time to kidnap someone from the Fengyun Valley. It had been 2 days since she talked to Shen Yinma. The reason why she did not come on the same day was that she felt that she had to leave some time for Shen Yinma to reflect on matters. After all, he just entered the apprenticeship, and there were many things to be processed. The second reason was that she felt that her face was not as thick as she thought. She wanted to calm her mind to make sure that she had the right attitude to come. After all, after she came to see the little guy, things would not go as smoothly as she would prefer. The little guy would undoubtedly reject her, so she had to try to convince him. If he insisted not to go with her, she would just take the idea of the muscle and kidnap him. There were various security mechanisms in the Fengyun Valley. They were all designed by the most powerful mechanism expert of this continent. Without the lead by people inside, the average person would definitely not able to come in. However, Gu Shijio was no average person. Those mechanisms could not stop her at all. Thus, in less than half an hour, she had entered into the Fengyun Valley. When she was about to ask the muscle to find Shen Yinma, she was surrounded. Those people emerged from all sides. Gu Shijio stopped. She had very sharp eyes and was able to recognize the 10 leaders of the group. They were the previous, current, and future masters of Shen Yinma. Shen Jiuli and his wife had left the mainland for something. They were worried about their son, so before they left, they found these 10 masters for their son. During Shen Nianmo's birthday, Gu Shijio hid in the dark and saw Shen Yinma meeting with the 10 masters. Afterward, she also investigated these 10 masters. They were the best leaders in the upper bound and had achieved outstanding achievements in one aspect. Up to now, Shen Yinma had trained under 2 of these masters, Spiritual Master Yu Hang and Master Fengxing. He had not gone to the other 8 masters yet, but somehow the 10 of them had appeared together. There were men and women, old and young, ugly and handsome. The 10 people had clearly coordinated to ambush Gu Shijio. They had sealed all the possible exits. You came. This was the first sentence that Spiritual Master Yu Hang uttered. Pridefully, he continued, I had guessed correctly. Master Fengxing looked like an angry pug with a deep hatred toward Gu Shijio. I have heard that you actually like a kid and might come to kidnap him. At first, I didn't really believe it, but now it seems that it is true. I don't think you are young anymore. You should be much older than Shen Yinma. Why would you want to be so stubborn? Yinma is not the one for you. You appeared at the birthday party of Yinma, so you should know his true identity. Is it because of his parents that you want to be with him? Let me tell you that the Divine Lord and the Great Devil would absolutely forbid someone to scheme their son. Yes, although they are not there, he has us here, and we will never let you touch Yinma at all. You have been traveling on this continent. Although you have been masked and do not let people see your true face, you are still very famous. Before this incident, everyone paid a lot of respect to you. Why would you be obsessed with him and destroy your own reputation? Gu Shijio remained quiet while the 10 masters had accused her and threatened her. Gu Shijio simply folded her arms and listened silently. There was a mask on her face, so everyone did know what her expression was. They could not even guess her thoughts by just observing her posture. Gu Shijio was very well-mannered. She did not like to interrupt when someone was speaking. However, when she stood there coldly, she emitted a faint aura which made people feel cold. Have you all finished talking? After they uttered their opinions, Gu Shijio finally opened her mouth. If I tell you that I have no intention to court Shen Ma and just want to complete a task to help him practice, will you believe me? Ha! Someone laughed, and it was not only one person who sneered. There were elites from all clans who formed a circle not too far away to surround her. I think you are trying to give an excuse because so many people have surrounded you. Where is the courage you had when you were rude in Mount Wujie? Many people heard what you said there. You can't deny it. It was Qin Luo's voice. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.